Hey, welcome back to the Fourth and Frames, the flagship podcast for the Fantasy and Frames podcast network. We're talking redraft as always. And if you like what you're listening to, you don't know yet because you haven't heard it, but assuming that you've liked what you've listened to, remember to subscribe, rate, review. And if you haven't done that yet, after this week's guest, my guess is you will be flying to your computer, your whatever, your phone, wherever you might listen. I don't really know at this point anymore. There's so many different devices and services offered out there that you will want to listen in as we talk about the AFC and the NFC South primaries. We go around the league, and we've pretty much concluded. I think this is the last one, Tyler, of our Bible of recap. It is so long. I mean, good Lord, it is right now. I mean, we are probably in the Odyssey chapter 25, I think, as far as these go. But joining me, Jorge is not here this week. It's why I am taking over and stammering through the intro, which is good because the content should be better. But joining me is Tyler Heil as well. Ty, what's up, buddy? Yep, and look at that.
He's frozen. He looks good though.
He does. Well, Keith, you're always
doing good. How you doing? They're funny.
I'm always going. I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here. I don't know if I'm happy to talk about the Atlanta Falcons in the next hour, but definitely happy to be here.
Nobody's happy to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. I promise. Maybe. I don't know. Because with us tonight is the founder of the Fantasy Six Pack. He is my, I'd say, mortal enemy in the Kings Classic auction draft, him and Rob Wozniak. He's also a two-time, maybe multiple-time, top 5 overall in-draft finishers at Fantasy Pros rankings. He was 3rd overall in 2020, 5th in 2019, soon to be 1st, maybe 2nd, because we have some rankings here as well. It's Joe Bond. Joe, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Just ready to rock and roll, man.
Yeah, we brought you in for the, I hate to say, not the sexiest primer. I mean, you ever do a star,
happens.
You know,
somebody's got to do the dirty work.
Right, exactly. I look at this kind of like I was talking to Tyler earlier, it's like a stars and scrubs approach in that there's so many top heavy players in the AFC South, and then there's just a bunch of garbage fillers. Keith, like you were saying, you're Atlanta Falcons, basically.
Hey.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts, and then, I mean, come on, really? There's not much.
All right, Jeer, there's some Falcons out there. Come on, man.
Easy. We'll get to them. But as far as news and notes, obviously with the 53s and everything with the cut downs, there's tons to digest. I think we'll dig into that a little bit deeper as everything starts to settle. So allow us a little bit more time to talk about some of this AFC and NFC South preview. Joe, let's start at quarterback, because if we're talking about the AFC South, quarterback position is far from exciting. But it's got some exciting names if you are a Superflex league. And do you play Superflex a lot?
I made a few.
Yeah. And so, you know, obviously you're going to recognize some of the names, I think. But at the same time, they're all kind of muddied together. Obviously, Tannehill, Trevor Lawrence, Davis Mills, Matt Ryan. Ryan Tannehill, Jorge, if he was here, would be glowing with, adoration and admiration. He loves Ryan Tannehill. And you look at 2020, you look at 2021, tale of 2 seasons. What do you think as far as this loss of A.J. Brown significantly? Are you dropping Tannehill much further past his QB 21 consensus?
I mean, no. I've got him. I guess you could say I've got him higher. I've got him at 20. Okay. But, I mean, it's right there. He's not anybody I'm really interested in. 2 QB leagues, Superflex leagues, fine, maybe, but honestly, even when you get to that point, I'm kind of just like, give me the upside with like a Zach Wilson or even a Davis Mills, who is just going to have to pass a ton in that crappy offense of theirs with a crappy defense as well. So like, you're just going to get garbage time from him at least, right? With Tannehill, yeah, I mean, look, we all like Treylon Burks as far as a talent, but we haven't heard a whole lot of great things coming out of camp. And like when you don't hear any positive news out of a rookie, it's kind of like, okay, usually they're just pumping these dudes up, but this is, I mean, that's not good. I mean, maybe they're just playing the Belichick, and just slow playing it. I don't know. It's just, it all seems bad. Plus, Derrick Henry's back and just gonna be the workhorse. So I'm not really interested in Tannehill. I'd rather take some flyers on some guys going slightly below him who could have a little bit more upside, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the weird thing about Tannehill is if you look at the passing touchdowns, obviously regressed quite a bit from 20 to 21. The odd thing is that the rushing touchdowns, and I think we might have even touched on this before, but if you had to rank the three out of these three quarterbacks, total rushing touchdowns over the past 2 years combined, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Ryan Tannehill, what order would you think that you would put those in?
I mean, probably Lamar, Hurts, and then Tannehill, but I know where you're going with this.
The exact opposite. Tannehill, Hurts, Lamar.
Yep.
14, 13, and 9. And to me, that screams like it should regress back to a normalized number, but I wouldn't bank my QB numbers on a 7 touchdown standard that he set for the past 2 years. But I think we're all. Does anybody have Tannehill much higher than what we have, like at least between me and Joe?
So I don't have him much higher. I have him at 19, so I'm right there with you, Joe. But, you're kind of talking about the rushing. He's still a good athlete. He's going to run the ball a little bit. He's always been a good athlete. Since he's been with the Titans, he's scored 4 rushing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns.
Right.
I think projecting him for 5 is totally reasonable with those numbers. He's regressing to a mean there. He only had A.J. Brown last year. Austin Hooper is one of the better tight ends he's had in several years. I'm not ready to write off Robert Woods as washed. And I'm not even considering Treylon Burks because I wasn't a huge fan of Treylon Burks coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But Tannehill has finished. He was the QB 12 last year. He was the QB 7 the year before that. I'm absolutely comfortable with him as my QB 2 in a super flex.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously I think your QB 1, whoever you have, if you have a super high upside and you want that stable floor, that makes that decision. It's always so difficult to determine who your QB 2 is going to be until you know who maybe your 1 is. But hey, Keith.
Yes, sir.
Let's move to Jacksonville because I have a question about Trevor Lawrence. Is there a chance that you think, and I hate whenever I say, is there a chance? Of course there's a chance with anything. You never know. How high could Trevor Lawrence truly finish this year? Revamped offensive line. They brought in pieces. They don't have Urban Meyer. I mean, if there's 3 check marks that I want to check on 3 boxes of, why they might have been shitty last year, what are you thinking?
Fringe top 10. Just a reminder that Doug Peterson led Nick Foles to a Super Bowl, and Carson Wentz was an MVP quarterback when he had him as his coach. Urban Meyer, I put in the piece that we did of the AFC South, and I hated to list all that, but the timeline of just how bad the situation was with Urban Meyer, who was a coach that really was not set up to bring out the best in Trevor Lawrence anyway, with the quarterbacks that he had success at the college level. Trevor Lawrence is a can't miss, and we rarely ever say that about QBs coming into the NFL, but he's in that list of, the Mannings, the Lucks, the Elways, these guys that just everybody was big on. He's got Travis Etienne coming back, which I can't get over how big of a difference that's going to make. He had 85 receptions his last 2 years playing at Clemson with Lawrence. Christian Kirk, I know a lot of people scoffed at what they paid for him, but he's a good wide receiver. So now they have somebody that can work some of the shorter stuff, make plays after the catch. Marvin Jones is a great down the field pass catcher. You got good tight ends. They've improved the offensive line. I think Jacksonville is going to be frisky. They have a very easy schedule. Very easy schedule. I saw last year he faced the 3rd toughest secondary schedule. This year they're projected to face the 30th. Trevor Lawrence can run, which is something I know he didn't do a ton of last year, but he did some, and he has that ability. And I'm trying to grab Lawrence in as many drafts as I can. If I wait to take a quarterback, I'm maybe taking him a little bit earlier. If I'm trying to wait on a quarterback, I'm trying to pair Lawrence with like a Matt Ryan or somebody that's a little bit sturdier. But I think that Lawrence could have a huge uptick. And same thing for the Jags. It's just a team. I think that they could be very good this year and surprise a lot of people because that division's weak. I think the Titans are going to regress. Colts are obviously good. And they got an easy schedule. They're going to play 3 last place teams this year, which that's a big deal when you're trying to get to 9-10 wins.
Yeah, it's rare to find a can't miss prospect that had a sub-2 passing touchdown percentage in a full season. That's just that you have to go back to like 2015 to find a name that you even recognize that was that low. So that's just bound to turn around. Joe, Tyler, I hate Trevor Lawrence, I love Trevor Lawrence superlatives you want to spit out or anything?
The only tempering I want to say is we mentioned their offensive line improving a couple times. They lost their best offensive lineman. Their center was Brandon Linder, and they brought in Brandon Scherf. That's all that changed. They moved their good offensive lineman from center to guard. So they did not revamp that offensive line.
I think Cam Robinson's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Cam Robinson was there, though. They just franchise tagged him. He's not new.
No, but I thought, didn't he miss?
Yeah, he was out
most of the season.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're good then.
Yeah, exactly. Jacksonville, the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, they drafted a new center. I mean, they drafted a couple dudes, but yeah, not totally overhauled. But yeah, I mean, hey, Brendan Sheriff's he's a stud, man. I like him a lot. That's a great pick up there. But yeah, I mean, I was actually kind of surprised that they went Trayvon Walker with the first pick instead of an O-lineman. Like, protect your asset, like protect your quarterback, right? Like, you needed to do it. I get that, the linemen weren't quite as highly ranked as Walker or Hutchinson, but that's why you trade backwards, get like the 4th pick, and just get a couple extras. And bad teams stay bad for a reason, you know what I mean? But I just quickly, I like Lawrence a lot. I think the upside's there. I mean, like, I kind of laughed. I just went on to Player Profiler and was like, I wonder what his comp was. Peyton Manning. I was like, well, no, but okay. I mean, yeah, is he? Everybody can't miss, but I mean, sure. I guess that's what we'll do. I would say Lawrence is probably a better athlete than Manning ever was because he can at least run. Manning was never a runner. So, but yeah, I think we're going to see leaps and bounds improvements with him. I think top 10 is easily reachable for him if things just don't completely fall apart like they did last year.
Right. And Tyler, as far as Cam Robinson does go, it didn't miss as many games, but he had limited snaps and enough that it felt like he missed so much time. So technically I am incorrect in terms of the heavy percentage. There's our Cam Robinson update for 2022.
He's a hoss, by the way.
Huh?
He's a hoss, by the way. He was a great player in college.
Well, let's hope that he protects Trevor and they can do something. Tyler, Davis Mills. What do we have with Davis Mills? I really want to buy in, and I want to just, I want to jump both feet into the deep end and think that this progression that we saw and, evolution, if you will. He had some games. I mean, he really did. He had 5 very successful games against really tough competition. He just didn't play up to the bad competition sometimes, which is just a weird season.
Yeah, so Davis Mills, it was a tale of 2 seasons. He came in and he was a rookie. He was a rookie all year, obviously, but he came in first start, coming out of Stanford, didn't play super well. He did okay. He played poorly enough that Tyrod Taylor came back and was the starter for 3 games until they realized, well, this is a bad idea. But, Mills finished the season with 6 games. He was very solidly mediocre in those 6 games. He had a touchdown percentage in those 6 games of 4.8%. He had an interception percentage in those 6 games of 1.9%. That is dead even on the bell curve of league median. So Davis Mills, what do we have? I think you can have Davis Mills' ceiling is probably the 14th best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
Something like that. But if we're talking about that on a bad team, like Joe said, they're going to be passing a lot. If he starts pushing that 35, 36, 37 attempts per game number simply because they are terrible, then you're looking at a guy who's pushing high-end QB2 numbers. Right now, I have him pretty low. I have him at 26, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's being conservative on his attempts per game because I also think that Lovie Smith is just going to do the old school or going to run it down their throat thing.
And oh boy, you're getting Keith going about Damian Pierce. Let's just hold off. The hype train has needs to be refueled. There's so much steam leaving in Keith's ears right now. Get ready to talk about it. All right, Keith, I'm going to round out with Matt Ryan. Not to hear you wax poetic, but I got an over/under. Last year he had 5 QB1 finishes. Will he have more or less than 5 QB1 finishes this year with the Colts?
Way more.
Way more.
Yeah.
I just want to let me remind people of this real quickly. Matt Ryan, the last 4 times he's had a top 10 offensive line. He finished 9th in quarterback fantasy scoring in 2011, 29 touchdowns. 7th in fantasy scoring in 2012, 32 touchdowns. 2nd in QB in fantasy in 2016 with 38 touchdowns. And 2nd in fantasy in 2018 with 35 touchdowns. When Matt Ryan has time, he is a really good quarterback. He is very accurate. The Indianapolis Colts have a really good offensive line. Matt Ryan is going to be very good this year. He's going to surprise a lot of people. And I know people make fun of the Falcons, and that's fine, but the offensive line was awful. 15 or worse in 8 of his 13 years in Atlanta. And as you can hear, when we had a good offensive line, Ryan was incredible.
Yeah. And that's fair. I mean, is the way over? And I mean, Joe, were you happy to see the move from Matt Ryan from Carson Wentz for the Colts? Let's start there, I guess.
For the Colts, I think, as far as like Pittman goes, and anybody else that he can throw to, yes, big improvement. Wentz is not good. We saw them try to win games with Carson Wentz throwing the ball, and then finally Frank Reich in like the middle of the 3rd quarter would just be like, dude, just hand the damn ball off. Like, this is awful. Like, he finally just gave up, right? Wentz had like a stretch of like 4 or 5 games there, like when he was like just good enough where people were like, oh, well, maybe this will work. And then like, no, the wheels fell off and they just handed the ball to Jonathan Taylor. Ryan is absolutely an upgrade. At this point in his career, though, it's really hard to buy into it. He's throwing a lot more interceptions, just in comparison to the number of touchdowns at this point. And yeah, maybe the offensive line is better, so maybe the touchdowns will come back a little bit. But I also think that this receiving core is far worse than he's ever had.
Did you see what he had last year?
Well,
okay, so maybe outside of last year, after Ridley got kicked out, but
yeah.
But okay, but even that, like the year before, right? He's always had Judy, he's always had Ridley. He's had those guys for a while, and like, I mean, outside of 2018, he's thrown 20, 26, 26, and 20 touchdowns with double-digit interceptions outside of 2018 in the last 4 of the last 5 years.
Offensive line was
That's not
23rd
good.
or worse the last 3 years. What quarterback, when they don't have time, is good? Like, no time.
Tom Brady.
No, he's not.
I was going to say it, but I was like, that's like the
Go watch
obvious.
the 2 Giants Super Bowls.
Tom Brady had the fastest time to throw in the NFL last year, and he was the best quarterback in the league. But, I digress from the unicorn Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I still think this is another, like, almost, I mean, it's kind of different with him and Ryan Tannehill, but it's almost the same, right? They're going to be a run-heavy team, right? So that does limit Matt Ryan's upside a lot, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And to where, okay, we might say Matt Ryan's a better passer. I don't know if it really matters, because when the limited attempts are going to be there for him, there's only so much you can do. So,
yeah. Well, pivot that right into what they probably will do when they get within the 5 or the 10. is obviously, I think it's going to be a Jonathan Taylor. I don't believe the touchdown percentage will be what it was last year. I think that's kind of, I don't want to say an anomaly, but it was more of an outlier in terms of just total touchdowns. But again, maybe not if you don't have a big receiving threat. Maybe that's Michael Pittman. Maybe that's Mo Alley Cox. Maybe that's whomever it may be. But Tyler, you're on the clock at 101. Are you a JT or are you a CMC drafter?
It depends on my league.
Okay.
If I'm in a league with a bunch of sharks like you guys, I'm probably just taking Jonathan Taylor. If I'm in my home league with my college buddies, half of them are numbskulls, I'm probably just going to take the upside of CMC because CMC can do more than anyone else. I was laughing when you called at me though because I looked at the Jonathan Taylor red zone rushing. He had 10 more attempts inside the 5 than number 2 in the league. He had 13 more, or it was 11 more attempts inside the 10 than number 2 in the league. And he had 39 more attempts inside the 20 than number 2 in the league. So, I mean, that's bonkers. Like that's just not something that's going to happen when you have Matt Ryan and the ability to throw inside in the red zone a little more.
Yeah, Joe, is that unfair of us to think that maybe he's established that he can handle the workload inside the red zone, that they're going to continue to do that? Or is this a regression to the mean where that's just an astronomical variance that is going to level out?
I think it's pretty fair to think that there is a regression to the mean there. Of course, we've seen that not happen before. I mean, come on, we all said the same thing about Aaron Jones, a couple years ago, like, oh, the touchdowns can't repeat. Well, they did. Yeah. So like it could happen, but I mean, come on, we're looking at guys like Eckler and Jonathan Taylor where the touchdowns could come down. He could still finish as the RB1 or RB2, just because he's that good. But 18 touchdowns with all those crazy numbers that just got said from the red zone. Yeah, that's probably going to come down. Now, are we going to say Matt Ryan's throwing those red zone touchdowns? I mean, come on, him and Julio can never hook up. I mean, I don't know.
That was a Julio thing.
Yeah, I was kind of joking. I was hoping someone would catch on that.
We're just beating. This is the beat up Keith and the Falcons show brought to you by 28-3. Sorry.
Oh, come on, man.
I know. We don't get to hang out that often, man. I got to make it work. It's worthwhile. You like it. So we're gonna, but I'll keep going on. So hey, that's cold-blooded, man. Whatever. I'm a Chiefs fan, Joe. KC. Don't understand the hate there. So got it. Joe, Keith, let's go to something near and dear. Joe, Keith has been Dameon Pierce supporter since draft day, has been banging the drum. Very good. I will say, I wish I had listened more to you in terms of the super late dart throws and had grabbed him and more. I did not. So shame on me. Bully who for you. But I want to throw a little bit of not cold water on it, but I have a question and a concern. Is that Dameon Pierce, the hype is out of control right now. You just said earlier you had to draft him, but league format made sense. Because right now when he's going in the 4th round, you should never, I personally don't think that. I think that's ridiculous. Yeah. But one of the concerns is that we talk about this 3 down back. They obviously, they let Marlon Mack go, which killed me because I thought Marlon Mack might start for the first 4 weeks or something and return somewhere around 4.5 yards per carry. But the backs they elected to keep are Rex Burkhead and Dare Ogunlawale, and both are good receiving backs. Does this mean that you think that maybe Houston just will decide to give him the first 2 and look towards the other 2 in the receiving game? And does that limit Dameon Pierce's ceiling that you have projected?
No, because he was a really good pass catching back in college as well. Will they obviously use pass catching situations? Sure. But I don't think he's not going to have receptions. I had him as my 3rd back in this draft class pre-draft. Mm-hmm. It was baffling to me that if you looked at his numbers, the quotes from his teammates, I think the Florida coaching staff is really dumb, and that's why they're not there anymore. I mean, this guy was incredible. He scored 13 touchdowns on 100 carries his senior year, And his last 2 years scored a touchdown on 11% of his touches. It's like, give the dude the ball a little bit more. He reminds me so much of Marshawn Lynch. I said it in the the lead up in the article I did back in April. The stuff I've seen in the preseason obviously has actually even exceeded my expectations. This guy's a freak. His teammates love him, and my biggest concern, to your point, is he's now at a point where obviously the drafts and stuff that I got him earlier in dynasty leagues, that was great. Now it's gotten too much. Because let's be honest, what is the Texans offense really going to be at the end of the day, no matter how good this guy is? But I still think, yes, he's going to have receptions because he was a really good receiver in college. He really was. He could run any route. That was something that you saw on his tape was they didn't talk about it a lot, but he can run any route. And the one thing I will say for people, if people want to say, well, they're going to stack the boxes and stuff, he rushed for almost 100 yards against Georgia's run defense this year. Nobody did that. Nobody. So, I mean, this guy's the real deal, and I'm happy for him. He ended in a perfect situation. I said that on draft night that as high as I was, I'm even higher now because, Lovie Smith's going to run the rock, and the Texans are going to lean on him a lot. So, obviously they're going to have the pass catching, backs in there, but he's going to catch balls. It's not like that. He's just not going to be receiving at all.
Right. Joe, how your feelings on Pierce now? I mean, obviously I think the draft hype has gotten to a boiling level.
Yeah. I mean, I did move him up to 27 in my half PPR rankings, but I still see him going higher than that still sometimes. I mean, it is just kind of crazy. It's just sort of like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, everything this Keith said, like, it is still a Houston offense. They're going to get behind early, and then you kind of wonder what's going to happen to the run game.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of run game there last year, even though they might not have had anybody near Pierce's talent. But I don't think it matters when you get behind, 14, 20 early. You have to go away from the run, which is why people like Mills, because of that garbage time, it's just going to be pass heavy after a while. And that's where they can't leave Pierce on the field all the time in those situations. They're going to bring in Burkhead. That's why they kept him around.
Yeah. That's so I look at some guys in similar positions, and the one, Tyler, that stands out to me, like, you're on the clock and realistically, you have to make a decision. Not even you're on the clock. You're projecting and you're doing your forecasting. Rashad Penny or Dameon Pierce?
Dameon Pierce.
Rashad Penny plays every game, guaranteed healthy.
Oh, Rashad Penny.
Yeah.
I love these makeup games where I can make the rules. I am not, but I've been, vehement that I was going to take a ton of shit that if Ken Walker, he doesn't deserve the Neth yet. I'm going to keep him at Ken, or the second, I guess. I was always a Rashad Penny fan, and that's become, man, you want to talk about getting some split people's opinions. Throw the phrase, excellent running back or potential workload or league winner because of what he did for the last 5 weeks. Joe, are you Ken Walker or are you Rashad Penny?
I'm Penny, but I'm kind of just staying away.
I just worry about the draft capital that they spent. And if the season goes bad, which we think it will, is it going to be a situation where they want to see more from Walker and what they have moving forward?
Yeah.
That's when they're going to be able to. I mean, this guy can't get on the field right now. That's fair. That worries me,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've moved from the Texans to the Seahawks. We'll go to a little better situation in, I guess we'll just give a percentage over under as far as healthy games played by Derrick Henry. Does the foot recovery have any concern to anybody? I mean, he has a screw in there, or at least one screw in the foot. So over under 13 games, Keith.
Under. We said it last year, and we take no joy in this, but me and Joe Matz both agreed going into last season that he had the amount of carries that you have to start concerning about any running back because there's just a diminishing return. And I do worry that he kind of broke down. He didn't look great when he came back, which granted he just had the issue, but this could be the kind of injury that he's never the same back again. And again, when you're a big plodding kind of, guy, which I'm not saying he's slow, but even just losing a little bit of speed can be a world of difference for these bigger backs. I do have a lot of concerns about him, even though the upside of Derrick Henry is as much as any guy that you can draft, because when he's good, I mean, hell, he can win games by himself.
We saw that. Last year. He was pacing better than anybody really we'd seen. I mean, 2,400 yards, I think is what he was pacing almost on the season.
Crazy.
Unsustainable. All right, over under for you, Joe. 13 games.
I'm going to go over. I think, I think some of the concerns about his workload I get are totally there, but you also forget that, the first 3 seasons he played, 110 rushes, 176 rushes, and then he had 215, so that's a lot. Yeah, those couple over 300, and then 378 in 2020. It was the pace he was on last year that was like, dude, you guys need to figure something out. Because you cannot give this dude 400 carries.
Running him
or
with
130.
like 2 touchdowns too.
Yeah.
Late in the game. It was crazy.
I mean, it was crazy. And I know it was working, but then, we all saw what happened. Hopefully the coaching staff gets smart and they realize they gotta give him a little bit of rest. And, we can see him get to maybe 270-ish carries. And I think that would be more than enough for him to be a top 5 back.
And Tyler, over under? Split vote.
I'm just gonna go over because I learned about 6 years ago to not second guess some of these guys with age that are just probably the best at their positions.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Brady taught me that lesson.
A decade ago.
Yeah, exactly. Teaches a lot of people that lesson.
When I project out Derrick Henry, I sit there and I keep on dropping the carries percentage down because no, 380 is too much. So yeah, I landed at 303 on him, and then you go to the touchdowns and it's 18 too many. No, it's really not. All right, I'll knock him down 3 and give him 15. But if he's on the field, he's gonna be a monster.
Oh yeah.
Derrick, and you want to root for the guy as far as when you see his workout routines, and it's so funny that here's this man that is a man, a monster, and the one area that keeps him off the field is this big. It's that that little bone in his foot is the whole issue, and that's it's got a crazy body, 206 of them stupid things. But guys, I got to tell you, I really have been big on Travis Etienne going into the draft season. The James Robinson talk, I don't know. I didn't want it to happen. Nothing against James Robinson, but I was just hoping he was going to stay away. What's the workload split? Just give me a split between Robinson and Etienne as a whole. And Joe, I'll let you start. You can go percentage as far as what you think maybe total volume may be.
I think we're probably going to see a fairly 50-50 workload split as far as the rushing, but we're going to see the vast majority, if not all, the passing work go to Etienne. This guy was top notch. In my book, he was number 1 coming out in his draft class for running back. If not, he was right there. So I like this guy. I'm excited. I want to see him get on the field. I know that injury scares people, but I think we have seen players come back from this injury and perform very, very well. He's young enough that I think he can do it. He's 23. Yeah. He can heal up. He can get better. He'll be fine. The guys that you see get injured like this are 27, 28, 29, and it's really hard to come back from that once you get to that age. And so I think Etienne will be just fine. And look, we know him and Lawrence have that connection from college. That's only going to help. So I have been buying a lot of shares of ETN, but unfortunately I've been in a lot of sharp drafts. So I haven't gotten them everywhere I wanted to, but I guarantee in all my home leagues, I'm going to have ETN everywhere.
I feel like he's fallen a little bit more too as each waking day that they talk about James Robinson, and the fear that exactly what you said. I see a 50-50 workload in the running game, and people just freak out at that statement because they don't realize that his value is never tied to his rushing totals. If you
He's
ask
going to
me,
be the Javonte Williams this year.
Here's my take on people freaking out about the 50-50 split. Even if it was a true 50-50 split, guys, we can count on one hand how many workhorse running backs there are.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Talent prevails. He's the more talented back. He will be fine. He will outperform his like mid-20 ADP a ton.
Yeah, I agree. Keith, I know you did a lot on these two. Anything to add, or pretty much can we
just
pretty much
again,
in agreement?
85 receptions his last 2 years. Him and Lawrence have the connection. So, I mean, it's not going to be a stretch to say that he's going to look for him early and often. Lawrence was somebody, too, that was really good at moving the chains, which that's the thing I think Etney's going to do. The biggest thing for this Jacksonville offense that they didn't have last year is when it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. I think you're going to see a lot of passes to him. I think he's going to be like the Javonte Williams of this year, where he's only going to see 45-50%. He may not have the touchdowns that you desire, but he's going to put up plenty of points. And if you're in a PPR league, he's going to be huge.
Gotcha. Tyler, let me ask a question. Are we underestimating Robert Woods in Tennessee? I mean, we look at until he got hurt last year, he was he was wide receiver 11 up until that point. And I know that that's Matthew Stafford. I know it was a different offense. I know it's better, everything, but he's currently right now going as the wide receiver 43.
That's way too low. I mean, we had, like Joe mentioned, we have not heard a lot of good stuff about Treylon Burks coming out of camp.
Mm-hmm.
I still think he's going to be involved this year, but they're going to bring him along slowly. Robert Woods is by far the best pass catcher on this team. I know he's getting up there in age a little bit, but I'm not ready to write him off. I'm not ready to call him washed. The last time we saw him, he was awesome. He was awesome with Jared Goff the year before that. Mm-hmm. And I believe I have him way higher than a lot of people. I have him all the way up at wide receiver 26 because Ryan Tannehill is capable of producing high-end fantasy finishes for wide receivers. It's not going to be super high volume, but it's just an efficient offense. It always has been efficient for touchdowns, efficient for yardage. So I feel really good about Robert Woods, and I don't really think 26 is all that high when you're talking about someone he's a smash to get 25% target share in that offense, at least. So I feel pretty good about that.
All right, Joe. Who will receive more targets, Nick Westbrook-Akini or Treylon Burks come season end?
Ugh.
Yeah,
if Burks can stay on the field, it's going to be Burks. Westbrook-Akini, he's good. We saw flashes of him last year, but I think you put that kind of draft capital in a guy like Burks, you're gonna try to force feed him the ball at least a little bit. So I think I would believe put a lot of money down. It would be Burks.
Yeah, they don't run 3 wide receiver sets, at least 3 true wides without someone just in the slot at all. I mean, really 4 wide, like less than 1%, I believe, if I wasn't mistaken on that. I saw a Player Profiler. It's just not set up for their for their system necessarily. But there's a system that I'm intrigued a little bit. We talked a lot about Jacksonville, and there was mentions of the Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones triumvirate. That's very, very much hyperbole. I am kind of kidding. I do like Christian Kirk. Joe, I'll give you another follow-up to that amazing question. Rank those 3 receivers in the order of target share.
All right, so obviously Kirk, Zay Jones. Who else?
Marvin Jones.
Kirk, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones. Zay Jones is a deep threat. I mean, I know Marvin Jones is too to some degree, but I feel like he's a little more versatile and can do a little more than Zay Jones.
Yeah.
And obviously Kirk, I mean, he's their like slot kind of underneath. He can jack of all trades kind of guy. and they just paid him like a wide receiver 1, so they're going to try to use him like one.
Well, and that's actually one of my concerns with Kirk a little bit. And I like Christian Kirk. I had him ranked really high just because I think they've already said that him and Lawrence have a great rapport in camp and through preseason. They were really more in camp than preseason. But when he's been matched up on one-on-ones to try to get him exposed, in single coverage, he hasn't beaten the defender yet that well. So I'm wondering if maybe that means they're going to do more gadgety things with Christian Kirk to get the ball in his hands, or is this a little far-fetched, fellas? Let's say Christian Kirk is the primary target and he can't get past or beat one-on-one coverage. Does that mean more checkdowns to Travis Etienne? Does that bump his floor even higher if you can't determine an alpha receiver?
I like Dan Arnold too, who saw a lot of targets last year. I know they brought in Evan Ingram, but Lawrence in college would go to tight ends a good bit. He'd go to running backs. And I actually think if the line gives him more time, don't forget that T. Higgins, Marvin Jones are kind of, similar. I know that Higgins is more talented, but I think you're going to see some big plays too to Marvin Jones, which you kind of started to see a little bit down the stretch. He did a lot in Detroit, but I think they're going to be an offense that's a lot of dink and dunk and then try to go over the top to the Jones boys occasionally.
All right. And then we're going to save the best for last. Tyler, you and I somehow, I didn't even realize this. Joe, real quick, where do you have Michael Pittman ranked in your receiver ranks?
All right, so I use my half PPR because that's what I focus on due to Fantasy Pros. I had him 11.
Okay, so we have 6, 8, 11 between the three. I don't think any of those three answers are crazy. I know when you see 6, that's Tyler over here. I was impressed because I had him at 8, and I thought, holy shit, that's hard to envision because it's not even the process of do I think Pittman has the ability and the situation to potentially get there. It's the other names that you have to drop down to go, how in the world is this person not a 6?
Well, hey, you're up there with Rudy Gamble at number 6, so there you go.
Yeah. Me and Rudy write together at Rasball.
Oh, nice. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm not taking credit for Rudy copied off me. If that actually he was, you know what though, he was huge on Jonathan Taylor last year, and so he, granted that.
Yeah, no, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, so. Rudy's really smart. Tyler, you have any fun stats or anything on Michael Pittman that you want to throw out since you love him so much?
My ranking of Michael Pittman is more a product of opportunity and quarterback improvement. Carson Wentz finished as the QB 14 last year somehow.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan is a marked improvement over Carson Wentz. I think Michael Pittman is a lot better than people give him credit for. Mm-hmm. And I think Paris Campbell will, he'll sprain his foot in week 3. We don't know about Alec Pierce. They don't have very good tight ends that are going to take a lot of target share. I honestly have the second leading receiver on this team as Nyheim Hines.
Yeah. That's not crazy, I don't think.
Yeah.
He'll surpass his 60 receptions from last year. I think that's a lock.
Do you think Nyheim Hines will? Yeah. I've got him at 62. So there you go. We're right on the same page.
Yeah, and they said, when they released Philip Lindsay, it was because he just isn't capable of playing on special teams according to coaching staff, and so I think they're comfortable with just those two seeing all the work. And Nyheim Hines in a full point PPR league is not a bad little plug and play if you have to. Obviously, you'd rather see it in a matchup where they might be trailing, which is hard to forecast because Indy should be, good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
But, we'll see. Joe, I keep giving you the fun ones, and I'm going to follow that up with another one because we want you to come back and just think these are all low-hanging fruit. You are on the clock, and every person – you fell asleep each round when everybody's tight ends were taken, and you were stuck now choosing between Austin Hooper, Evan Ingram, Brevin Jordan, and Mo Alley Cox. Who is your tight end of choice between those 4?
Oh, man.
I know. Sorry. Your team's going to be stacked.
That was not low-hanging fruit.
No.
I mean, my rankings say Ingram, but, that's gross. I mean, but 2 away is Hooper. Yeah, it's not pretty. I mean, I'm gonna go with Ingram just because we have seen it before from him. You just have to hope that he's not gonna be playing in the cold weather, which is something that was bothering him. A lot of I have read a lot that is what caused some of his drop issues. Who knows, right? We'll see pretty quickly if that's really the case. But at least he's done it before. Right? Hooper's kind of done it. He had one season, but he's been really mediocre since. None of those other guys matter.
Brevin Jordan can pop on tape sometimes, and he looked like there's not enough balls. Evan Ingram has the best chance to have 6+ touchdowns, 7+ touchdowns that you would need if you're just going to dumpster dive for one of those guys.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
On that note, that wraps up the AFC South. Let's dive back into the NFC South. And when we looked at the quarterbacks in the AFC South, clearly between Tannehill, Lawrence, Davis Mills, and Matt Ryan, I say it's an uptick to the NFC because you can start with Tom Brady, and then it falls off a cliff as well. No offense to Jameis Winston, but the Mariota, Desmond Ridder, Baker, I know Tyler, being a Browns fan, that should be really interesting. Does the NFL have the best schedule makers in the history of the world? Do they write for The Simpsons as well, where they know what's going to happen and they just go ahead and predict? Because you've got two matchups of week 1. Week 13 is potentially Deshaun versus Houston. I don't know.
Yeah, they really nailed the Browns schedule this year. It's going to be pretty fun. I'm also not very worried about Baker Mayfield in Carolina with a Matt Rule-led team.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about Baker. Realistically, where do you have him? About higher or lower than 26?
Higher.
Okay, see, there you go. You're a Baker fan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm a Baker homer. I actually have him at 22, and that is a result of God. I hope CMC plays every week. I really hope that guy can play 16 games because if he can, that's going to be a big boon for Baker. DJ Moore, I personally believe, is the best wide receiver that Baker has ever had. Odell and the Browns does not count. That was Odell and the Browns was not a good wide receiver, period. He was not a good professional wide receiver. He didn't try. So DJ Moore is the best wide receiver he's ever had. CMC is the best all-purpose running back he's ever had. The Panthers line is questionable, but if Ike Ekwonu pops at left tackle, that's really going to raise the floor of that line. So I don't feel like the line is Falcons level bad where it's just going to be like, yep, they suck. Mm-hmm. They really have a chance to improve, and I believe that they can be a top 16 offense with Baker at the helm. Not top 10, but top 16. I think they can have some success. I think they can win 8 to 9 games because overall that roster isn't bad. And they brought Rashard Higgins from Cleveland. So
there you go.
Higgins is catching four touchdowns.
4 balls.
Totally useless for fantasy football, but he is going to catch 4 touchdowns this year.
Which will all be the ones that DJ Moore should have scored when he only gets 4 touchdowns on the season again after 1,200 yards receiving. Right. I'm the DJ Moore truth believer, so trust me, it burns. But there's no more consistent receiver. You know what you're getting. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to pencil in exactly a statistic, but that is one guy.
It's like Keenan Allen, man.
Exactly right. I'll take both of them.
Right.
Especially Bob Lung would love us for the consistency because he's as consistently disappointing yet exciting. It's the hardest definition to put on a player. Another hard definition is starting quarterback. Who, Joe, starts more games in Atlanta?
I think they will eventually switch over to Ridder, probably around game 6. They're going to be bad, and so I would put more money on Ridder to finish more games, or to start more games. I guess is what you meant.
Yeah. Right? Exactly. Yeah. Maybe not finish because
they might pull him too, but he might start more.
But it could be it. Like Keith, is there any disagreement in that, or are you a Marcus Mariota truther?
I think he's going to be better than people think. He's looked really good in the preseason. If any coordinator, coach knows how to get the most out of him, it would be Arthur Smith. And I think they would like to have Ritter sit most of the season and watch.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if Mariota's going to stay healthy with that offensive line. But I would say right now, if he does, Mariota will end up starting more. I think it'll be more around week 10, week 11 when they make the swap. I really do think they want to take their time with Ritter because they think they hit the QB that they want,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to put him in a bad situation, early.
Yeah, they've already talked about Ritter, and they were hyping him up quite a bit, and as well as his recognition of coverages and a few other like learning processes.
At some point, you have to throw him in.
I'm not disagreeing, but you don't want to throw him to the wolves. And if you're doing it week 5, week 6, he may not survive with that offensive line.
Why aren't you throwing him to the wolves?
Because you don't want him to get hurt.
You're going to have the number 1 pick in a draft where you have C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young.
We're not going to have the number 1 pick. We're not going to be that bad.
Oh, do I hear? Oh, okay. Let's do this. Over under 5 wins for the Falcons.
Over.
Oh, anybody else? Joe?
They're going to be about the same as they were last year. They're going to win 6-7 games.
No, they're not.
No.
Who has
They're
more wins?
talented. They're more talented this year than they were last year, without a doubt.
Who has more wins, the Bears or the Falcons?
Falcons.
I know that's.
Yeah, fine. I'll give you that one.
We've really picked on a lot of bad teams and bad situations.
I mean, we are doing the South divisions. Like these are the two worst divisions.
But if at the end of the season, hindsight.
The Falcons over under right now is 4.5. Just to say,
is it really? Oh,
it is.
I guess
I'll take a wager with all 3 of y'all right now. Go ahead.
They are projected to be tied with the Texans at 4.5.
Take
for the worst. For the worst. Yep.
Interesting.
Seahawks 5.5. Bears are 6.5. I'm not sure how that's possible.
Who are they beating? Maybe they played the Falcons 5 times.
I mean,
sorry, Keith. I'm just messing with you,
dude. I know we're not going to be great, but we're going to win more than 5 games.
Well, bet with Vegas, and I hope you
more
win.
Than 5
I'll bet with you guys. Y'all are the ones talking smack.
I mean, they do get Carolina. Carolina, could be the wheels could fall off of Carolina if they go. CMC goes right.
Mm-hmm.
Keith said more than 5 games. I'm in.
Okay.
So the one thing with Atlanta is that
we know what it is, Tyler. Just like you didn't like Pickens.
If Deion Jones is gone, if they end up moving him as well, I think that hurts the middle of that defense enough. Even though I know that I like Troy Anderson, but he, as a rookie coming into a middle linebacker position,
the defense
will
is going to
hurt
be bad.
them.
I think the offense is going to be better than people think. I really do. Arthur Smith's a great play caller.
He
look
is.
at the offense. I mean, we won 7 games last year with Matt Ryan and a rookie tight end, literally, and Cordell Patterson, who before that had done nothing. They have a lot more talent now than they just do on both sides of the ball.
Well, at the end of the season, hindsight is always 20/20. And who's seeing 20/20 now? Jameis Winston. Thank you, LASIK. Does that help? Does he have – all right, Tyler, I know this is turning into an over-under, but we don't need to go 20 minutes on each one of these players. So over-under, 15 interceptions for Jameis Winston this year. I just picked numbers too, by the way. I have no clue exactly. I'm not sure if that's a record low for him or not either.
I have him projected for 14.
Oh.
So I am going to go under. Just so we're clear, that is not being kind to Jameis Winston. That's still projecting him for a 2.7 interception ratio. That's pretty high. That's around where he's been his whole career. So, I'm going to go under 15.
Okay. All right. Joe, you went over under on that?
I'll go under. Like, we forget through 7 games last year, he had 3 interceptions. I mean, the dude was protecting the ball. He was doing what he was being asked to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was no longer just, fling it down the field as much as you can in Tampa when he went 30 for 30. That was.
I agree.
I really am hesitant with Winston this year to rely on it because was last year a fluke, and it wasn't great by any means. I mean, through 7 games, he only had 1,100 yards, so it wasn't bonkers good, but I mean, he protected the ball, so like he wasn't losing you those games, right? I mean, he had those games, man, sometimes where it was like, oh my god, how did I get 3 points out of Winston? He threw 4 interceptions. What in the hell? Like,
Right.
he wasn't doing it, and so he was much safer quarterback, and he has that potential, and you also forget last year, right? No Michael Thomas. Now he's got Thomas, Landry, Olave. He'll have obviously Kamara and Ingram's there now too, so.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some weapons. It doesn't matter.
What's the deal with Kamara? I mean, when are we going to know about the suspension?
2023.
That's what I'm
Is that
guessing.
really what it is? They're kicking it down the road?
Oh, absolutely. It ain't happening this year.
Okay.
I think the only way that it was going to happen, and this is someone brought this up, and it was more just tongue in cheek, and it would be so prophetic for just how our society runs, is that the guy who actually has the tape of him beating the person to death nearly is taking hundreds of thousands of dollars of over-under bets in Vegas for how many games Kamara plays and all these prop bets. And then as soon as he gets the money in, he releases the tape and they suspend him for half the season. Now, they would cancel all those bets because he was suspended and he would never get paid out. But I thought, what a terribly accurate depiction of our society and what would really go down and not ruin this guy's life. It's no, whoa, sorry, Kamara, I feel bad for you, because he clearly did something wrong.
Yeah.
But it'll be 2023. So where do you have him at, Joe, as far as your overall? Are you taking him in the back half of the first round at all yet? Or is he creeping up that high?
Back half for what?
Into the first round drafts. Where you have Kamara going currently?
Kamara? Yeah. Right now, so my rankings are still a little conservative with him. But I moved him into 8. So he's right there, back at, depending on how many running backs are going. Obviously, Jefferson, Chase, Kupp, and sometimes Kelsey mix into that first round, so it could bump him right to the beginning of the second. But yeah, he is mixing into that category. When there was that scare of the suspension, I had him all the way down at like 17, 18. Even I had him down at 20 at one point, and was like, and then it's like as we got close to the season, I'm like, well, this isn't happening. So. I just put him right back where he was from the beginning.
Yeah, you wanted the early drafts. We got Tyler and I got him in our Kings Classic for 30, I think 34 or 33. Him and Barkley both.
He was 33. Saquon was 36.
Okay, yeah. So
yeah, that's pretty solid. I mean, I spent up. We spent up for Swift, and I mean 42 spent up, or maybe it was 45. Either way, but yeah, that's much better value at running back than what we got.
Well, it's also a lot of risk built into both of those.
It is.
Keith,
not the
how
Swift isn't totally.
No, you're right. Exactly, that's true. That's
play
fair.
To win the game.
You play to win the game. Exactly. How risky is investing a super late round pick on Tyler Algier with the hopes that he finishes inside the RB 40 on the season?
Oh, he'll be inside the RB 40. He's gonna be the Mike Davis role this year, and people forget Mike Davis saw a 52% snap share last year. He almost had 200 touches. Algier saw 5 red zone touches and a half with the starters in the second preseason game, which is usually a pretty good indication of how much you're going to play. They've already said that Patterson is not going to see any more of a workload at running back than he did last year. And again, Davis was terrible last year. I think he averaged 3.2 yards per carry. Algier's better than that. And I think that he really is one of the he's kind of became the Dameon Pierce for me now in drafts where he is going way too late for the kind of shares that he's going to get. I mean, he's going to get to play. He's not a terrible pass catching back, and he's going to get to run the rock. I think he's way too low right now at his current ADP.
His running mate is a person I've even after last year, I still don't believe in what Cordell Patterson can do. So here's the right now. Currently, he is the RB 36. I think that's way too high if you ask me, but that's just my 2 cents. Tyler, I'll give you a would you rather. Cordell Patterson, all these screw them within about 4 or 5 picks of each other, or Kareem Hunt.
Oh God, Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt's 35. Cordell Patterson's 36. I am in agreement with your exasperation. I agree. All right, Joe, Cordell Patterson or James Robinson?
Probably Patterson, just because he's still going to get a lot of the work there, and he gets all that passing down work.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. If it's a PPR league for both of those, it might be a little bit different.
I think even half, I go with Patterson.
Yeah.
And that is so
just
Robinson,
that pass catching ability really just that's what keeps his value at least somewhat decent.
Yeah,
especially with Mariota and a rookie quarterback being your two QBs.
And he should be under direct, short check down stuff. They say athletic ability negates some of the check downs. Not always in the case if
Not
your
that
athletic ability. Not when, but they did. Jalen Mayfield is not the starter anymore. He was my number one target last year, next to Alex Leatherwood in my IDP rankings. Whoever was lined up against those guys, I moved up about 11 spots guaranteed.
Or Matt Ryan.
Worked out decently well. So, but yeah, that 11-win team, Algier, should have about 35 touchdowns. And
don't be taking my words. I said more than 5. I said 6 to 7 wins.
You did not. I heard what you said. Okay. And we're
I just want to make sure, because
Leatherwood going to the Bears is why we don't have the Bears winning more games.
That's exactly right. Such a great. I love all my Raiders fans that are friends of mine that are fans is the best, because even at the time they hated the pick so much, but they were doing like concessions with themselves. They're like, you know what? Hey, they always do this. They always screw up the first pick and then they do good in the second round. And it is like prophetic. I mean, it's exactly they screw up the first round really bad, and the second round is better. I mean, it's not great; it's still the Raiders, but they'll be better. Let's not talk about the Raiders. Let's continue on to. I'm intrigued. I think all the talk, Joe, early in the preseason was that Leonard Fournette is packing some pounds, and it took a week for him to shed the weight and be back to normal, if you will. Are you worried at all about Leonard Fournette's overall draft ranking, and I guess by comparison where you have him? Because right now, currently, he is the RB14.
That's exactly where I've got him. So no, I do know some people have him inside the top 10 or just right around the top 10. I think that's a little too high. Look, we saw last year, he was the only capable running back in that backfield. There just wasn't anything else there. They tried with Rojo and it failed miserably. Laguna Bawalade wasn't good. It was just bad all around. So, there's a couple things that worry me with him. Is one that offensive line has gotten just decimated this offseason. That's just not going to help anybody. Godwin is back, but not fully healthy. In my opinion, but they bring in Julio Jones, they bring in Russell Gage, so they clearly still want to throw the ball a lot. And yes, you can look at Fournette and say, he had 80 targets last year, caught like 62 passes or whatever crazy number it was, caught 69 of them. And so yes, he can do it. That's actually the second time in his career he's caught a ton of passes. So he is a capable pass catching back. But that's not really what he thrives on. Like, that's not his game. And so they bring in Rachaad White, and I think that's going to take away from him. And that's why, early on in my rankings, I had him inside the top 10. Then all these injuries started happening, and just you started really evaluating a little bit more and just thinking, I don't know if he's going to repeat, all those touches he had last year, especially in the passing game.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's a positive at all, is to say that his, inside the 5 numbers, as far as the 5 touchdowns, were so low in comparison. I think it was in the 25th in terms of touchdowns scored within the 5. So maybe that pushes upwards. But I don't know. I don't have any Fournette anywhere so far this year.
I don't either. Brady's kind of selfish and wants those himself. He's either gonna drop those. Well, there's no Gronk this year, so maybe not. But he can still get that to Evans pretty easily, or just sneak it in himself when they're on the half-inch yard line.
Really good at
He's
that.
really good at that. So
he really is. Do we need to talk about CMC? Does anybody have anything? Is anybody super low on CMC where it's worth talking about outside of their top 3?
I wouldn't touch him.
Okay.
Not in top 3.
Injury.
Yeah, I know people say it's been nothing major. It's 2 years in a row, and it's just to me, you gotta, if you have a top three pick, you gotta get it right. And I'm terrified to take him there.
And I can respect that. I'm not gonna, look at you side eye if you don't want to take the risk. But Joe, are you in different field, or what are we thinking?
So I agree with that statement. I'm not personally drafting him. My rankings are different though. So, you project one way, my mind says draft a different way sometimes. And so, yes, if he can stay healthy for even 14 games, he's going to finish way up there. So that's what you do. That's what you project.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something to come on, we talked about Derrick Henry, right? And the amount of touches and carries he was getting 2 years in a row. Over 300 combined touches for Christian McCaffrey. In fact, in 2019, it was it was over 400.
Yeah.
That was that crazy year for him. And then, of course, since then,
That's the number
we've
two
seen him
that's
just
very
fall
bad
apart.
for backs. If you look after the 400 touches, it's not good for any back that's ever done it.
Yeah.
So there is something to that. But, all camp, they're just saying he's super healthy. He's looking fresh, stuff like that. So, yeah.
I will say, I took him in 2 drafts last year.
Point.
They said the same thing.
That's what you got to say. It's just the thing is when you're doing these ranks, and I think I can speak for all of us probably. As much as we would love to just go out on the limb and say we don't think CMC is going to play 16 games, I should put him as my RB 11 because if he plays 12 games, he could probably finish that high. Even if he plays 11, there's a possibility. Just to say, if you want to win the competition, but then you're spending the whole, you have to justify that. And some people do it for clickbait type material or whatever. But when you're doing your projections, you should never project total injury loss. I mean, reduce 2 or 3 games, maybe. I get it. It's just the
lowest ranking is 2 people have him at 9. A couple people have him at 8.
Gotcha.
And then it just continues to go up from there. Most people are, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people that have him less than 5 out of 200 rankers on Fantasy Pros right now.
If I'm drafting 5 or 6 and McCaffrey's there, I'm so quickly taking him. It's unreal. But I just, again, the top 3, especially, I think Jefferson's going to have a huge year. Cup's going to fall up here. I just think that there's safer plays, and I trust I can get good running backs, later.
I'm just looking. I haven't had to make that decision yet. I haven't had a top 2 pick or even a top 3 pick yet. I've had back end of the draft picks, and he's gone. So I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't have to worry about it.
I've had the number 2 pick in Rasbull, Scott Fish, and 3 or 4 others, and it's like, damn it! And every time
have you taken him?
In Scott Fish, I took him at 11, 11, and then Rodgers. I like that team because I have as my 2, I have Chase and I have Penny. I have some risky total risk, but my receivers are Diggs, AJ Brown, and Pittman. Those are my 3, and so I'm
That's
fine.
Solid.
With,
yeah.
Before the Pittman hype, now he's going in an FFPC draft last night. Pittman went at the 201.
Wow!
He went at the end of the first round, the turn. That's the highest I've seen so far.
Holy cow!
It's getting not out of control because we still got to support it, right, Tyler? And over here, but we did talk earlier. Brought up Michael Thomas with Jameis Winston. We talked about all of them, honestly, between Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave. And I do like that receiving core. What's everybody's take on Michael Thomas? Because I think that's kind of a polarizing player, not knowing exactly what you're going to get. Joe, if you had to write your write-up on Michael Thomas come season end, how's the narrative going to play?
I told you so. Stay away. I mean, the guy missed a whole year last year, and it was always close. He never came back. And then this year he comes back, and he's already dealing with hamstring injuries. So it's like, I mean, just how much more are we really gonna take with this guy before it's like enough, just gone. I don't think he's going to miss the whole year, but I think we're going to see him deal with nagging injuries for a bunch of the season. And he just seems like he's just like an angry dude. Like he just doesn't like the environment he's in. And like, he almost like, yeah, there was a little part of me last year that felt like he kind of quit on him. Like he maybe could have come back.
No, he did quit on him.
And so it's like, how much of this is he doesn't want to be there? And like, look, the Saints aren't going to be very good this year. They're not going to be, like Super Bowl contenders, in my opinion. So how much of him, like when they start losing, he's just going to be like, I'm out of here. Yeah, that worries me too with somebody like him.
I can see that. Keith, you get a question here. Of those three receivers, who has the most receptions, Landry, Olave, or Michael Thomas?
Jarvis Landry is a guy I'm picking up in a lot of drafts for his ADP. He's been a top 36 receiver every season he's been in the NFL. That's at least a wide receiver 3. And it's not like he's had a lot of great quarterbacks. So Jameis is up there with any of the guys that he's had at any point in his career. I trust Landry. Your point with Thomas is a fair one. Rookie receivers, I know we've had some real booms the last couple of years, but that is not the norm. And I just, I trust Landry, and you typically, I think, actually can get him for the cheapest out of the 3.
Mm-hmm. Jarvis Landry is a pro's pro. He is going to show up every day.
Yeah. I think it was Hard Knocks when he was on, when they were in Cleveland. I think in like the first episode, he came in and he had the receivers room. And he made a speech, and I can't remember everything about it, but I remember feeling not Jamal Williams height, but pretty close.
Nice.
Oh, geez. Hey, you came ready for this podcast.
I'm actually podcasting from my closet. So if you'd like any
exactly. We'll just go through. Who do you have, and we'll talk about that person. Do you have a Drake London? Oh, nope. We're going to move on to worst Madden covers of all time. Maybe best / worst. Madden curse was not too good for him. I think it was just his talent, but regardless. So
I felt like that was like a troll job because he got voted into it, and everybody's like, "Oh, this would be funny," and then everybody goes, "Oh, wait, what just happened?"
Exactly.
Did we really just do that? Oh, damn!
And then Madden never let us vote again.
Exactly.
No.
They even said they gave him I don't even think he was even ranked high in the game. They're like, he's the Madden cover, and he's like a 72. Probably broken tackles was good. I don't remember what he was. All right, Tyler.
He was fantastic for that one season.
What he was.
He was a bowling ball. Yeah.
It's better than I've done. Better than probably all 4 of us have done combined in the NFL. I'm going out on a limb without knowing your pro.
My career's not over yet, Nate.
That's true. That is true. You're spry. They might need you in Atlanta.
That's fair.
During the playoffs. So, speaking of Atlanta, Tyler, I think there's been a lot of talk comparing when Marcus Mariota was in Tennessee and that he could support the tight end position. Obviously, with Kyle Pitts there, that's the narrative. The concern is he never really could support a wide receiver and the tight end. But then again, Tennessee never really had a significant receiver for him to target. Is Drake London the guy that can change that?
Not this year.
Okay.
I like Drake London. I really like him. He is going to share some targets. I mean, Kyle Pitts is the guy in that offense. I projected Kyle Pitts for a 26% target share, and I felt like I was being conservative.
Yeah.
He really might push a 30-31 like Devontae Adams type target share. And they're going to Cordero Patterson's still going to get a lot of targets. Yeah. Algiers going to get some targets. You still got the Olamide Zaccheaus who's going to steal stuff. Brian Edwards is somehow going to start on the outside for them. And I got Drake London for a 20% target share. I got him as the number 2 receiver on the team. Unfortunately, that offense isn't going to be good enough to support that. It just doesn't matter. You can get a 20% target share, but when your team's only going to throw the ball 500 times and it's going to be wildly inefficient, it just doesn't make a difference for fantasy football.
His 20% target share compared to, say, the 20% or less that actually Mike Evans had last year are 2 different 20 percentages. We know that.
Yes.
Joe, according to your rankings, I went over. If anybody's not a subscriber to the Fantasy Six Pack, you can find Joe and everybody else's top 5, top 3, just amazing rankings over at fantasysixpack.com, correct?
.net,
Joe?
actually.
.net, damn it.
The jerk who has.com won't sell it to me.
Gotcha. Well, everybody, if you're a hacker out there, if you will go to fantasysixpack.com, we will give you all the shares of the money that Keith's going to win from the Falcons bet. 50% will go towards you if you
I'm not
break
sure.
down that.
I don't know. But fantasysixpack.com could be a really risky website to go to.
That is true. Who's got the hottest six-pack in football? You have Chris Godwin, I would say, quote unquote, lower than consensus a little bit, according to the overall. But where's your overall ranks? Because I know that he's really kind of gaining a little bit of traction because they say he's healthy, and the draft stock's moving up. But is it moving the needle for you?
Yeah, my overall has him less. Although personally, like especially because my half PPR, like I kind of devalue the receivers more than others. It feels like in my overall, but my regular receivers, just my receiver rankings. Like I've actually got him. I sent it to you earlier today. What did I say it was?
Yeah, I know, and I had that pulled up, and
I'm pulling it up now because I forgot. He is. Oh, I guess I didn't put him in there. I think he's basically like right there, like, and that's why it wasn't enough to send you. It was like, he was actually. I think I'm actually ahead. So I've got him at 29. I've dropped him recently. You just worry about a guy coming off of the ACL injury, as late as he had in the season, ACL and an MCL tear, and they did bring in 2 other receivers who are very capable, and obviously one who used to be a stud in Julio Jones, and as long as he stays on the field, I think that's going to be a detriment to everybody there. And Gage is no slouch, but I think he takes the biggest hit out of all these guys when they're all healthy. But I think Godwin's going to build up as the season goes and be really good at the end, but I think it's going to be slow starting, and that's what I worry about, and that's what kept his ranking a little suppressed.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I have him as a 3 in a lot of leagues, technically as the 4th receiver on my team, but would be the 3 after maybe week 5 or week 6, and I'm great with that. I'm more than happy to have
that's great.
3. It's just there is a risk. Keith, when all this was going on, Mike Evans, like as far as like my rankings, with Godwin not coming back potentially till week 6 when all that talk was going on, I had Evans as high as like my wide receiver 6 or 5 overall. Was that ridiculous to think? Or, I mean, if we see some setbacks from Godwin, do we think that Mike Evans is this? I mean, we know he's going to score double-digit touchdowns. He's done that every year. That's pretty much guaranteed. But how was Mike Evans' narrative at the end of the season going to be written out?
It sucks that I drafted Evans in a couple of leagues, early, thinking that Godwin was, not going to play for at least the first 4 or 5 weeks. You didn't have Julio at that point. And his target share in the games last year without Godwin and Gronk was just outrageous. I mean, I think it was the 3 games he scored 6 touchdowns. I thought it was not crazy to say Evans could end up, a top 3 receiver at the end of the year if he had a 6-7 week stretch where it's basically him. I am concerned about Julio. For what I've read, and this is kind of crazy, but they seem like they're going to put Julio in the Gronk role. And they plan to use him in the red zone, in the seams. He's going to run a lot of the routes that Gronk ran. And I do think that that's going to take up for Evans. And, people say Julio's washed. I'm not sure if he is, if he can stay healthy. Even last year, he still had 14 yards per reception. And I know it's a different circumstance, but a lot of people are saying the same thing about Randy Moss, when he got traded from the Raiders to the Pats. And then, he got with a quarterback like Tom Brady, and everybody's like, holy crap, Randy Moss is still Randy Moss. I don't think Julio's going to quite have that season, but I would not be surprised if he has a Gronk-type season and puts up similar numbers if they are going to use him in that, light, which I've read several articles saying that is what they brought Julio in, is to replace basically Gronk.
It'd be a good spot. It'd be a smash spot as far as familiarity with the zone and the area of the field that Brady likes to attack. Maybe is that because of comfort with with Gronk, or is that just because that's how different offense to an extent. I mean,
it's another guy that's a physical mismatch for most people, which is a lot of what made Gronk. But I'm sorry, to your question about Evans, I still think Evans is going to have a really good year. I don't think the Bucs are going to be nearly as good as everybody says. I think they're going to be down more. They're going to be in more situations where they're going to have to throw a lot, and that's good for all the receivers.
Shit, can they throw any more? Hell,
yeah, right.
Either two for, but I know what you're saying.
Well, we saw in the Rams game last year where when they need makeup points, late, they can score in bunches, and that was Evans who burned Jalen Ramsey, and when they need big plays, it's going to be Evans that they're going to. So I still think Evans is going to be a top 12 receiver.
Yeah, and that goes back a lot with their overall success to what Joe said. That offensive line is by far my biggest concern with that team, and that's that's going to play kind of chaotic a little bit, but realistically, all right, Tyler, the fun game of more or less, over under, whatever you want to call it. DJ Moore, my boo, is coming off of by far. Now, granted, he obviously played 17 games versus the normal 15 for the last 2 years, and saw a bump of nearly 45% target share or targets bump from 118 to 163. Not efficient with those 163 targets, only 93 receptions. But over the last 3 years, pretty safe to assume, somewhere around 1,175 yards and 4 touchdowns. More than 1,200 yards receiving, Tyler, or less?
I've got him for less. I've got him 1173.
Gotcha. How about touchdowns? More or less than 4?
7. This is the year, man.
Whoa.
I'm going over.
Wow.
I like that. Joe, do you do your forecasting or?
I do not. Now we do have projections on the site, but I don't personally do them. I do my rankings kind of off a little more feel and gut. I evaluate a lot of stats. I've got some spreadsheets to keep track of some things, but I don't personally do full blown projections. But I am looking at our projections just because I was wondering what they said. 1180 yards and 5.5 touchdowns. So I guess fine, we'll give him 6.
Okay. And I think that anybody drafting DJ Moore at 14 overall, where he's going,
would love that.
Would love that. The question then is, if you're in that spot and the 3 guys going around him, and I'll let each one of you guys kind of tell me what you're thinking, just because I'm intrigued by the names. I love the guys that are surrounding him. It's Pittman at 12, Keenan Allen at 13, Cortland Sutton at 15, and that is in half-point PPR. And then right after that is a little more polarizing in Mike Williams. I really like Mike Williams, but I understand the concern for others. Joe, we'll start with you. Are you taking any of those aforementioned names over DJ Moore by every time, or is
I'm taking Pittman and Keenan Allen? I mean, yeah, in one-offs it's Pittman, then Allen, then Moore. Now, I'm in 15. I don't even know how many drafts I've given up counting, but I've got Allen in a bunch of spots. So if it came up again and Moore was sitting there, I'd probably like to diversify myself a little bit and take Moore and be plenty fine with it. Allen is more like a PPR target for me. I actually kind of pass on him in half PPR. With me, Allen's sort of like he has he's very safe, but he doesn't have that boom ceiling. I mean, I think we can see it in his stat sheet last year. I don't think he, in a half PPR, I don't think he went over 20 points a game last year once. Yeah. Which is crazy. But of course, in PPR, he's 24, 25 every game because he catches all those passes and he gets all those extra points. So, but in half, which is what I kind of base my discussions off, because middle ground, I guess, those guys are all right there. But it's Pittman, Allen, Moore for me.
Perfect. And that supports our Pittman love, which makes you an official family member of the Fantasy and Frames team. Your shirt will be in the mail. And on that note, I also just drafted Michael Pittman at the 2-7 in the Des Bryant Scott Fish league that came out.
Oh,
I was
nice.
So I went Dalvin Cook, Michael Pittman over, mind you, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, AJ Brown, T Higgins were the other receivers that were available. I personally, I can't do Tyreek. I can't. I'm not because of just my Chiefs bias, but it does play into it probably quite a bit. But I don't want to say it is because I want to stand firm that it's all about the boom and bust weeks that he had, and I watched so many of those weeks.
Yes, that is very true.
He's going to have a great season because Jalen Waddle's already banged up, and they're worried about it. And I'll go, oh well, screw it. I don't want to, have Tyreek Hill. But all right. So as far as the rest of the receivers on Carolina, Tyler, we're not too concerned with Robbie Anderson, correct? Gross.
No.
We're not too concerned with Terrace Marshall. You like Robbie?
No, he said Visca.
Oh, Visca time.
I said Visca. Yeah.
God.
I'm kidding.
The sad thing is right now, I mean, Terrace Marshall's pretty much on his way out. I have to wonder if a change of scenery would be good for him, or if he's just not the
second year, isn't it?
Yeah, they've already they already mentioned some of the beat
reporters.
They're
giving up on this kid.
That's what they're saying. They said in Carolina they played him like 45 snaps in that last preseason game to try to get Takers to trade, and he had 45 snaps and didn't have a single reception. And they're like, shit. Well, there goes our trade value. This again, beat writers in Carolina probably just beating down on the guy, and then the Visca trade, and they think, oh, this adds up.
Yeah,
neither here nor there.
Could it just be that Matt Rule sucks?
Yes,
possibly
could.
I'm just playing everybody else, but keep Matt Rule around, right? And this, yeah.
So, all right, we'll do got a couple minutes left, realistically. I mean, we have all the time in the world if we really want, but fairly speaking for people, the tight end position in the NFC South, outside of Kyle Pitts and Keith, I know I could probably give you 20 minutes and you could tell us about Kyle Pitts, but where's he at in your rankings?
You talking about overall?
Overall, is he your 1, 2, or 3 at tight end?
He's number 2. I respect Kelsey too much to have him above him, but I would not be surprised if he ends up surpassing him. I don't think people understand. He was asked to do outside receivers so much last year because we didn't have any. And the biggest thing that I'm excited about having Drake London there, other than the fact that I think he's going to be a good receiver, is just the fact that it's going to allow him to line up inside more at tight end. He's going to get lined up more against linebackers and safeties, who he absolutely smoked last year. And defenses actually still have to pay attention to at least somebody else on the field. And if you saw Kyle Pitts and basically the only snap he played against the Jets in the second preseason game where he just absolutely smoked the cornerback and went 51 yards, this guy is incredible. And I know people knocked him last year because he only had 1 touchdown, and I get that. But his numbers, his receptions, when again, he was the focal point. Defenses were trying to stop him, and he still had over 1,000 yards and 70 receptions as a rookie. He is going to be unbelievable. And I'm not even worried about, Mariota or Ritter, especially because Mariota, Walker had his 3 best years with him. So, I mean, that's the one thing he's proven is he can get the ball to a tight end. I expect Pitts to just be a supernova. But again, Kelsey's been too great for too long. And without Hill, I have to show him respect. He's number 1, but I think Pitts is number 2 and has a great chance to surpass him this year.
And that's fair. Guys, any other tight ends that you want to mention? I mean, Adam Troutman
just
never really got much
I
going.
have one. Trimble in Carolina. I think that you look at Baker Mayfield, he's had one of the highest target ratios to tight ends. I know part of that was the Cleveland offense, but he still has shown a tendency to throw to tight ends. Trimble is a extremely athletic dude, shown by he actually had a rushing touchdown last year. And I think they're going to want to try to get him the ball. And he is the only pass catching option. I just think that if you're throwing darts late, he's somebody that could have kind of a breakout season and end up being, in the tight end 15 by the end of the year.
Yes.
And so this is gross.
Oh.
I am curious to see what the Saints do with Taysom Hill.
I am too.
I was going to ask you guys that because
I actually am too.
I don't believe Dennis Allen will do anything with Taysom Hill,
which is a shame.
I don't think so.
I
don't think it's a shame.
I think there's a chance because they didn't concern themselves with bringing in more running backs. They stuck with exactly who was on their roster.
That's
And
true.
maybe that's because they're saying, hey, we couldn't really run Taysom Hill that hard in the past because he needed to be our backup quarterback.
Right.
He needed to be our starting quarterback in some cases. And that's no longer the case. I've only got him for like 20 receptions, if that. But I think he's going to come in. He's going to run the ball in the red zone for them sometimes.
Yeah.
And he could push 100 carries. He could be a freak show and push 100 carries.
What position is he going to be listed? Just quarterback or tight end?
Tight
He will
end.
be
Oh
listed
yeah, all
at-
the
okay.
sites moved him back to tight end
Okay.
only. You know, I'm curious to just kind of see how this Tampa Bay tight end situation unfolds. There will be a guy, right?
Yep.
It's not going to be as sexy as Gronk. It's not going to be as as good or as consistent as Gronk, at least when he was on the field. But one of these guys is going to be decent. It's just which one, right?
Do you like Otto, the rookie from Washington?
I did. I did, honestly, until they brought in Rudolph. And then you were like, well, now what are they doing? So, I mean, that kind of suppresses him. And then, I think does Brait and Brady have just enough of a history that I lean Brait and, maybe would you be at all surprised if Brait finished inside the top 15 tight ends this year just because he scores, 8 touchdowns? Could be 30 passes, but it could be 8 touchdowns. That's gonna do it. Good luck figuring out which 8 weeks it is, but that's the problem with
That's for us to figure out on the Daily Fantasy Show.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to exactly what you said. Tom Brady wants his in the red zone, and he'll get there.
Braid's a great target there, and same could be said for Rudolph. Like if Rudolph became the passing tight end target for him, I wouldn't be shocked either because he's done it before. We've seen that role from him.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, where that's all he did.
Yes,
I mean,
and we know Brait can block too. That's the other difference too. So that could be how that worked out, but it doesn't feel like that's how that's worked out in camp in preseason so far. But we haven't seen a lot from it, so it's all just a big guessing game. But they are all of those tight ends are guys that if I'm picking one of the last ones in my drafts, I'm keeping an eye on what happens in Tampa with their tight end situation, and I might swap out if I went out and got a Austin Hooper as my only tight end because I waited that long type of thing.
If they have the line problems, could you see more 2 tight end sets potentially from them? And it's obviously more just for blocking situations, but
yeah, you definitely could. I can see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember too, even Mike Evans is a really good receiver for blocking too. So,
and Julio's a great blocker.
And if you look back at the last 2 years, within the 10, Brady is first in overall with the most touchdowns passing within the 10, and he's finished first and second consecutive. Aaron Rodgers is the only other person that's finished ahead of him in either of the 2 years.
Guys are incredible.
That's just that's
Greatness.
a Cameron Brait. It's who will be, but like Joe said, it wouldn't shock anybody if Kyle Rudolph comes out and he just happens to find a spot in the zone or a spot somewhere in the end zone, and Brady finds him. Brady can go through 15 progressions from the 10.
Or Rashad White could end up being the James White, Kevin Falk,
Yeah. It won't be Tyler Johnson. We know Tyler Johnson.
Yeah,
somehow.
I was so high on him last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, all right. To round out, let's go through our divisional picks. Joe, let's start with you for the AFC South. Who's taking it home?
Yeah, so it's going to be, let's see here. I think this one's probably fairly easy, but I'm going to go with Titans, Colts, Jags, Texans.
Okay. How about you, Keith?
I'm going to go Colts, Jags, Titans, Texans.
Wow. Okay.
I think the Jags are going to be frisky.
One consistent so far, Texans. I can't wait to get to the NFC South for Keith. This is going to be good. Go ahead, Tyler. What you got?
Colt, I feel like it's chalk, but Colts, Titans, Jags, Texans.
And I'm with you, Tyler, just on the Colts, Titans, Jags, Texans. I do think the Jags could have a chance to to be competitive, or they should be. I don't think there's any more than one team out of the South with so many teams from the West that's going to make the playoffs most likely, unless they just beat the hell out of each other.
They
The
got tough
AFC
schedules,
is so interesting and so difficult to forecast. But all right, Joe, let's go back to you for the NFC South.
Bucks, Saints, Falcons, Panthers.
Oh, look at that. You made a friend. Keith?
Falcon. No, I'm kidding.
Falcons.
Uh,
Falcons.
I'm gonna go Bucks. As much as I hate to say it, Saints. Falcons, Panthers.
Okay. How about you, Tyler?
Bucks, Saints, Panthers, Falcons, and I actually think the Panthers might be a little closer to the Saints than we want to admit.
I agree with you again on that order. Last year, Carolina was my sneaky pick to make the playoffs because I thought, obviously, if you had a healthy CMC and their defense had gotten better, their defense got
With
better
Sam
again.
Darnold?
Well, yeah, and what did we see through the first 5 weeks? Sam Darnold had, solid. He was running. I think he ran 4 touchdowns in those weeks or whatever it was. It was very
He's doing his best Michael Vick impersonation.
You just had to think getting away from New York has paid dividends for so many others. It didn't work out. They ran. I mean, you lose CMC and it takes all that away, out of the equation anyway. But it was ugly. I mean, no offense to some of the teams that we covered, but there's a lot of just muck and there's a lot of great talent that I think that we will see come seasons in. But I can't wait to follow along, Joe, with your work over at Fantasy Six Pack. You guys are everywhere. I mean, from RT Sports to your website to, I could just list and go on and on. If you guys haven't read their work, it's excellent. That covers everything. You can probably tell it better than I can.
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. We cover everything. Obviously, fantasy football. That's what I'm here talking about. But we also do baseball, basketball, hockey. We do golf. We do tennis. DFS mixed in for all those sports. Betting stuff. The idea is that it's a 6-pack of sports. So we try to keep 6 rolling at all times. Like I said, the big thing right now is we've got those subscriptions. The all access plan is the one you want. It's going to get you access to everything we have on the site. All of our rankings are going to be behind it. We're going to have a monster waiver wire article this year written by Herms. I'm sure lots of you know who he is. He's gonna write about 30 different players every week. It's going to be crazy deep. So you get that. All of our DFS tools that we've got built into it. And then the big thing is our Discord channel. The All Access plan gets you access to that. So direct access to me. I'm going to do AMA every week before the Thursday night games. We'll get some other guys in there doing that too. We've got Dave Eddy there just posting like crazy. He's a phenomenal DFS player. I've learned everything I know about DFS from him. And he blows it out of the water. So, that's going to win you all your money back for subscribing. Hands down, Dave Eddy right there. So just subscribe for that alone.
Absolutely worth it. I can tell everybody it's like you just said, one DFS win or just, like you said, the interaction to be able to stay consistent. And that the key, honestly, you don't have to win your draft to win your league. You don't have to be the best going in knowledge wise, but if you have the tools to keep you afloat throughout the whole season going into draft season, it's the easiest money you'll ever spend. Tyler, what do you got working right now besides our Bible stories?
Oh man, it's Bibles. We're gonna have some meetings to start figuring out what we're gonna be doing for the remainder of the season with the Dynasty 365 podcast. I know you guys are discussing the Shoot the Gap podcast. Mm-hmm. Keith and Joe are just getting ready to get rolling on the Daily Fix, their DFS podcast. So I'm just gonna try to support every podcast that we're doing. And also we're getting ready to do a Chasing Upside feature every week over at Fantasy and Frames. We're all going to pick some guys outside of the top 24, top 12, if you're talking tight end or quarterback at their positions. We're going to pick some of those guys that you might be able to grab off the waiver wire, or some of those guys that you might be deciding if you want to put them into your flex spot. So we are all going to team up on that and get a lot of positions out there every week for a Chasing Upside. So I'm looking forward to that.
And Keith, how about you besides going to Vegas?
Well, we've got the Daily Fix, our weekly daily fantasy football podcast. Me and Joe will be getting rolling next week. For those that have not listened in previous years, we give a high tier, medium tier, and low tier play at each position. We talk a lot of smack to each other, have fun. We've been extremely good at the low tier plays over the last couple of years. We hope to continue that. I'm going to change up the format just a little bit. And I'm actually working on a piece that hopefully I'll get out by the end of this week that is on breakout offenses. The last 3 years, if you pick the Ravens in 2019, loaded up on the Bengals last year, the Bills in 2020, they all had 3 to 4 players that finished way above their ADP. I'm doing an article, the teams this year that are most likely to have 3 to 4 players from their team, they're going to finish way above their ADP, and that'll be the breakout offense piece. Hope to have it up by Friday.
Perfect. And I'd say, Jorge, sorry that we did not cover IDP on this particular one. I didn't need to talk anymore for half an hour about the because as garbagey, is that a word? It is.
Yes.
For the offense, it may be the defense. The IDP is deep in both these, and we will discuss that. The articles will be out later this week for AFC and NFC both, which covers all of that. The Shoot the Gap episode tomorrow. Joe, if you ever want to get into IDP, I would love to have you, jump in and just watch. You don't even have to partake, but if you have any of the guys at Fantasy Six Pack that would love to come on and talk some IDP, we have our prediction show tomorrow with some of the bigger names and, the Gary Davenports and the, Mike Wohlert and Jorge and Hollywood are big names. And they're on the show, so they just get me.
Yeah, we got
go
some
through
dudes.
our predictions. Yeah,
we got some dudes.
I would love to have them.
I'll send them your way.
Please do. I know that I see there. I don't want to give them, too much information because I got a ranking comp over there. I got to hold up to, and I know how solid you guys are in your ranks. I want to keep that badge. But yeah, so tune in tomorrow to Shoot the Gap, and then Club Fantasy and Fantasy and Frames are teaming up to do another IDP show. It's starting up here shortly, and we'll have more of that to follow. But thanks for listening, Joe. Again, thank you so much for giving us an hour and 40 minutes of your time. I know you have so many other things going on, but it was truly an honor to have you on here. I say good luck in the Kings Classic. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I do wish you well. Yeah, we'll blame it on Waz if anything goes wrong. It's his team. Right?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Well,
it's all his fault.
Perfect. You heard that, Waz. It's all on you. Tyler, Keith, you guys, thank you again, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.